This is Boomer Life on CISL 650.
Baby, you're a rich man. Baby, you're a rich man. Baby, you're a rich man too.
You know, I've always liked that song, and I'm still not a rich man. Some Beatles music there on this episode of Boomer Life, in which we're talking about debt problems, and more specifically, friends, we're talking about solutions to debt problems. More and more Canadians, the newspapers again on the weekend, stories on television, the whole bit, more and more of us are becoming more and more indebted as time goes by. Money's cheap. Brett Luckin is here from Abakhan and Associates. They are trustees in bankruptcy and proposal administrators with 5 offices around British Columbia. Brett, let's talk a little bit. We talked about the Canada Revenue Agency and the special status that they have privileges and powers beyond a lot of, certainly the banks and any other people we might owe money to. And there's another state agency that a lot of Canadians owe dough to that also has some kind of special status. Yes. And that's this whole matter of student loans.
Student loans, correct. Student loans, their special status is that if you have been a student inside the last 7 years and the loan is as a result of you being a student inside the last 7 years, if you file a bankruptcy or a proposal, it in fact is not extinguished. It's not washed away by that bankruptcy or proposal.
Oh, okay.
And it's literally as it's now. We're talking May, and if you were a student with a loan inside 7 years, I suppose that would be then April 2008, and inside that period of time, it would not wash away.
Interesting.
So that gives it a special status, which means that people who are students literally are forced to find another solution to the problem within that 7 years.
Is this a result of clever students trying to just wash away the student loan back in the early days? Oh, what the heck, I'll just go bankrupt and clear the books, and then we can have a life.
Well, it was 10 years, actually, not so long ago. It changed to 7 years not that long ago. I suppose there's a level at which people, is that just generally society doesn't want you to, borrow $50,000, get some kind of degree or diploma or something, and then just happily wash it away within 6 months of, and therefore not repaying your debt to society, because society has ultimately been that who paid the $50,000.
Right.
So you should be repaying the debt. Having said that, the 7-year thing is obviously important because you also don't want to have people. And there are many of these people in their 30s, 40s, even 50s who are still bizarrely still paying off their student loan.
I know.
Just let me put it this way: that is an area where I have very strong feelings. In that I don't think it's right that somebody who is 45, and I meet people in their 40s like this often, who are still paying student loans off. And it's still significantly a problem in their lives. And they were students 20 years ago.
Right.
It's madness. It doesn't make sense.
Interesting stuff. So thus the emphasis on now, mind you, if it was 20 years ago, if you haven't been in school for 20 years, and
you could file a proposal.
You could file a proposal, and then the student debt
correct.
would be accepted.
Yes, correct. And then it would be extinguished by virtue of that bankruptcy or the proposal.
Once you had paid out your portion of the
proposal, or you filled and been discharged from bankruptcy. Yes, it would be. So yeah, that's one of those debts where you do need to be careful of. And the obvious is true is that if you're going to take on a student loan, be clever. I don't want to cast aspersions on any nature of any kind of career or anything, but you do not want to be taking on a career that, for instance, let's say taking on a student loan of $100,000 and putting that towards a career that clearly is never going to pay you more than $2,000 a month for the rest of your life, because your chances of paying off that $100,000 are pretty remote.
Right.
So don't put yourself in that position. Do a little bit of research. If you're going to be, a purple widget maker, and purple widget makers make $500 a month, don't get yourself into a student loan for $150,000 to become a purple widget maker.
Right. Good advice, and some of the bits of which continue to be blithely ignored by too many.
Yes.
And of course, then we have problems. And student loan debt is a surprising a problem, a thorn in the side of a lot of Canadians.
It's a very controversial political topic where a lot of money is thrown at it constantly.
Right.
And I'm not sure that money necessarily is cleverly allocated in terms of ensuring that put students into exactly that position, namely happily loaning them enormous amounts of money to become a purple widget maker.
Right.
Knowing fully well that society is not in a position to pay purple widget makers enough to help them pay off that loan.
Our producer, Dwayne Bishop, is really intrigued by this purple widget career possibility. Suddenly, he's writing things down.
I don't want to pick any particular career, but yes, you need to do your research if you're going to take on that kind of debt.
All right, the other topic that we absolutely need to talk about for a couple of minutes here before we let you go, Brett, is the Bank of Mom and Dad. And more numbers from BMO this past weekend that were covered by all the TV stations and all the print media. 42% of first-time buyers rely on the Bank of Mom and Dad for down payment, and a significant number of move-up buyers are in the same boat. So basically, moms and dads, grandmas and grandpas, godparents, a lot of Canadians are lending money to next generation Canadians to get into the housing game. And in Vancouver especially, of course, where prices are just insane, that's really high risk. So let's talk about the Bank of Mom and Dad from the mom and dad perspective. It's real easy to be on the other side. Mom, can Johnny and I borrow $500,000 to buy a house? That's easy. Mom's got to say, well, yes or no. So what do you say?
Yeah, there's two issues. One is the co-signatory issue, and namely where mom and dad will co-sign for a debt. Whether it just be a straight loan or a car loan or anything like that. And I see my fair share of moms and dads. Just the other day, in fact, it wasn't even the mother and the father. In fact, it was the uncle.
Okay.
And the uncle co-signed for his son who was working on the oil fields. His son, his nephew who was working on the oil fields for a $42,000 car. Unfortunately, his nephew's contract got cancelled after 3 months, and his nephew was unable to repay the car. And you have a gentleman in his mid to late 60s who actually had literally $3,000 in CIBC credit card debt, and he was earning significantly enough every month to easily service that.
Sure.
He was quite happy with his life.
Right.
Except now, bang, suddenly he owes $42,000 on a car.
And the bank, doesn't want the car back. If they've got someone who's on the hook for the cash.
I was able to give him advice, I think, which helped him resolve the problem. But it was, of course, crippling for his credit report.
Of course.
And something that really, had he not signed that piece of paper, or maybe had the nephew been a little more conservative about the nature of the car he purchased.
Right.
Perhaps it wouldn't have had that
I'm 22. I've got to have a $42,000
I've got to have
vehicle.
a $42,000 F350,
Really?
right? I've got to have that car.
What about mortgages, though? I'm talking about the gift. This is because at least in that case, the uncle signed. There was some kind of contractual thing going on. Yeah. What about the flat-out gift? Here's a whack of cash. Go buy yourselves a house.
I have to just say again, this comes from my own personal opinion, but as well also the nature of the kinds of people I see who come through my office. It's very risky to do that. What you're effectively doing is you predicating the purchase of a second or maybe even third property based on the value of the first one. And so you got a little neat house of cards, which of course is completely predicated ultimately on the housing market staying where it is, and not undergoing any sort of major volatility. And no one in their right minds, if you went to a financial advisor, would tell you that in your 60s you should be, or 70s, or 50s for that matter, that's the kind of risk you should be taking on.
Right.
So be very careful. See a lawyer. Make sure you do some research. There are ways you can protect yourself, such as taking security against the property. Don't just take 200 grand out of your own mortgage, hand it over happily, and
I mean, even though you want to and you want to do the right thing, still it's an awful lot of dough. So at least talk to a lawyer.
Correct.
And there are ways and means of protecting yourself because the risk is so high.
That's right. And as I say, remember my little my layer approach where there's so many things can go wrong?
Right.
You are adding a significant weight to that, let's say, multi-layered house of cards. And if you don't do the research to make sure you've protected yourself, it would just take that last little straw on the camel's back, and suddenly everybody gets to lose.
Right. So I guess the bottom line, the takeaway from that would be, you're not advising people not to do these things, Brett, but for goodness sake, take a step back.
Yes.
Speak to a professional, perhaps a lawyer, perhaps an accountant, or both, and really have a firm grasp of what you're about to do.
Of what the risk is you're actually taking on.
Exactly.
Correct. Yeah.
We're fresh out of time. I thank you for yours. It's always wonderful to have you come by. And I think most importantly, the little ray of sunshine that you put on the radio every time you come with and make an appearance with us, Brett, because people know that there are solutions. It's, yes, the debt problems can be awfully black and awfully isolating, but that's not the end of the world. It's up to you to find someone like our guest Brett Luckin and his colleagues at Abakhan and Associates and get this process started.
Give us a call.
Abakhan.com, ABAKHAN.com. All the phone numbers, the addresses, all
Everything
5 offices. It's right there on the website. Good to see you again.
Thanks very much.
And we'll see you next time right here on Boomer Life.